Welcome back to Booga Buggie Silly Stories for Kids. In today's episode, Booga Buggie and Elon battle it out at the Battle of the Bands. Well, listen along to see who wins and who plays the best music. Elon had just learned how to play the guitar, bass guitar, and drums, and keyboard. So he could pretty much play everything, and he really liked music, especially rock music. But he couldn't play each instrument at once. So he taught his sister Pfeiffer how to play the bass guitar, and he taught his little baby brother Kepler how to play the drums, and then he played electric guitar and also sang. And every day, Pfeiffer, Kepler, and Elon practiced their music. Mom and Dad were surprised. Not because the music was getting good, but because baby Kepler was still a baby and he could play an instrument. But anyways, Elon, Pfeiffer, and Kepler just kept practicing so they would get better and better and better until they were really good. As Elon and Pfeiffer went for a bike ride and baby Kepler was getting pushed in the stroller, Elon saw a sign on a telephone pole. That sign said, "This weekend, Battle of the Bands." Elon read the sign and he said, "Hey, we're in a band." He looked at his mom and dad and he said, "What's a Battle of the Band? Do we go and fight each other like in a boxing ring, or do we wrestle each other?" Elon's dad and mom laughed and then looked back at Elon and said, "No, Battle of the Bands means you get one song to play in front of a huge audience. And then another band also gets a chance. And any band that signs up plays one song. And then the audience, they cheer and scream and clap for their favorite song. And whoever has the loudest cheer from the audience wins the battle." Elon looked at Pfeiffer and Kepler and said, "We have to do it. Let's go sign up." So Elon's dad called the Battle of the Bands organizer and said, "Hey, I have a band that would like to play and battle." So Elon, Kepler, and Pfeiffer practiced and practiced to get ready for their big battle. But what they didn't know is that Booga Buggie had snuck along, hiding in the baby stroller, and he overheard the conversation about the Battle of the Bands, and he thought that would be super fun and silly too. So he called his friends Gurga and Ferga and Tree Tree, and they decided to make a band too. They hadn't been practicing for as long as Elon and his band had been. But they wanted to give a try anyway, and they were really competitive, which means they really, really, really wanted to win. Booga Buggie's band and Elon's band had been practicing and getting ready for the battle that was coming up on Friday. And before you know it, Friday was here. They packed up all their equipment. They drove over to where the battle was. Booga Buggie's band had snuck a ride along with Elon's band. And when they arrived, they unpacked their equipment, they brought it in through the doors, and got all set up. At the registration table, it asked for each band to sign up and put their band name there. Elon looked around and said, "I don't think we have a name." So he looked at Kepler and then looked at Pfeiffer, and an idea came to him. He said, "Why don't we call our band Elon and the Ninjas?" "Woohoo, we love it," said Pfeiffer. And Kepler didn't really say anything because he can't talk because he's a baby, but you could tell he liked it too because he kind of said goo goo gaga, and that kind of means that he likes it. So there you have it. Elon and the Ninjas were going to play soon. After they had set up their instruments, they practiced for a bit. And this was the first time that Booga Buggie and his band had heard Elon and the Ninjas play. Ferga, Gurga, and Tree Tree looked at each other and were worried. Elon's band was really good. How are they going to win? So they thought of a really sneaky idea. After Elon and the Ninjas had finished setting up and practicing, they were going to go get a drink of water to get ready for their big song in front of an audience. And when they did that, Booga Buggie and his friends quickly snuck up to the stage and they took all of Elon and the Ninja's instruments, but they replaced them with cardboard instruments. They had even painted the cardboard so it would look like a guitar and a keyboard and drums, and it would trick Elon and the Ninjas. As Elon, Pfeiffer, and Kepler were getting a drink, they heard over the speakers, "Okay, audience, are you ready? Next band we have in the battle is Elon and the Ninjas. All right, Elon and Ninjas, come on up. It's your turn." So they put down their cups. They ran as quick as they could up to the stage. They were so excited and ready because they had been practicing. So they got their instruments and they started to play, but that was weird. This guitar doesn't sound normal. And the drums, donk, 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 donk. That doesn't sound normal either. Oh no, what's going on here? Our instruments sound super weird. So Elon started singing anyways, and Kepler and Pfeiffer and Elon played their instruments. They're really weird sounding instruments. And it was only until halfway through that they looked down and they saw their instruments were kind of getting a little bit bent and were super flimsy. And they realized that they were cardboard. No wonder these things sound so odd. The audience was confused, but they liked the sound of the words on the song, but it just didn't sound that good from the instruments. But they finished their song anyways, and they kind of went away a little bit sad because they didn't sound as good as they could have. So they went back to finish their waters and watched the rest of the bands play. As Elon and the Ninjas were waiting there, listening to other bands, one of the bands finished, and then the announcer came back up. And the announcer said, "All right, and the next band we have coming up is Booga Buggie and the Boogies." Elon, Pfeiffer, and Kepler looked at each other and said, "Oh my goodness, Booga Buggie's here? He must have been the one that switched our instruments for these cardboard ones." But they watched, and Booga Buggie and Tree and Gurga and Ferga all got up on stage there and started playing their rock song, and they sounded pretty good. It was a good song. The audience liked it, and it was pretty catchy for a song that was played by for a song that was sung by a bug. As Booga Buggie and the Boogies got off stage, the announcer came back up and said, "Hey, audience, that was the last band to play. Now, your job is to cheer for the band that you liked the most. How did you guys like Elon and the Ninjas?" Woohoo! Yeah, woohoo! Lots of clapping and cheering. It was clear that the crowd did like them. And then the announcer said, "How about Booga Buggie and the Boogies?" Woo, yeah, all right. And it was also clear that the audience really liked Booga Buggie and the Boogie song. In fact, the audience liked both of them so much, even though Elon and the Ninja song sounded a little weird with the cardboard instruments, the announcer couldn't tell who the crowd liked more. Every time he asked, the crowds just went wild and cheered and clapped so loud. So, for a special treat, the announcer said, "Okay, we're going to have both bands come back up and play another song for you. Then, whichever of their new songs you like the most, that's what will determine the winner of this Battle of the Bands competition." First up, we're going to have Booga Buggie and the Boogies. Booga Buggie, Gurga, Ferga, and Tree got back up on stage. Now, the funny thing was, they had only practiced one song. They only knew one song, so they didn't know what to do. We had to play a brand new song, and they decided, okay, well, let's just make it up as we go. So they started playing, and it sounded kind of weird. I mean, they didn't know the words, and Booga Buggie was just singing some random things about living in a plum tree, and about how he made Tree into a surfboard, and all of these silly things. And the crowd thought it was interesting, but it wasn't as catchy as the one they had practiced before. So Booga Buggie and the Boogies finished their song. The announcer came up and said, "Okay, it's time for Elon and the Ninjas to play." So Elon, Pfeiffer, and Kepler got up on stage. And the cardboard instruments were so floppy, they couldn't even really play them anymore. They didn't even make any noise. I mean, I don't know how they made noise in the first place, but now they really couldn't make any noise. But Elon, out of the corner of his eye, saw something shiny behind the stage. Under a big blanket were their instruments that Booga Buggie had snuck away. So they ripped open that blanket, they quickly grabbed their instruments, put them up on stage, and they had practiced a whole bunch of songs, so they were ready. Elon knew just what song to sing next. Okay, we're gonna play Ninja Flips. So they started playing, and they sounded amazing. The crowd was going wild. They were cheering and screaming and jumping up and down because they loved it so much. Even Booga Buggie, Tree Tree, Ferga, and Gurga were cheering and jumping around, and you couldn't help yourself. It was so catchy and such a good song that everyone seemed to love it. When they finally finished playing their song, everyone cheered so loud. The announcer came up and said, "Well, I think it's a unanimous decision. Everyone loves Elon and the Ninjas. Hooray, you guys won Battle of the Bands." And for a special prize of winning, Elon and the Ninjas got to meet Beastie Boys. That was their favorite band ever. And so Beastie Boys came on stage and started playing Ninja Flips with them, and they were singing together. It was so much fun. Meanwhile, Booga Buggie, Ferga, Gurga, and Tree Tree started practicing some other songs and said, "Well, if we're going to win Battle of the Bands next year, we're going to have to learn more than one song and probably not count on hiding instruments from Elon and the Ninjas anymore." So they went home and kept practicing. But every time they heard Elon and the Ninjas songs on the radio, they stopped what they were doing and started dancing around because it was so good. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to Booga Buggie Silly Kid Stories. Feel free to leave a rating or a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That really helps others find these silly stories too. Well, stick around for more Booga Buggie stories.